Good afternoon. Welcome to Postcards 20. Today I thought I would look at the writings of Sue Townsend, whom you will know as the creator of Adrian Mole. I've just cribbed something off Wikipedia. It says Susan Lillian Townsend was born in 1946 and she died in 2014. I'm afraid she probably did die of smoking. I know she was in a lot of pain. Her husband also died that year as well, which indicates perhaps considerable problems in the family. But let's not be sad about this. That's the last thing that I'm setting this all up for. But I'm putting some links down below to the television adaptation of Adrian Mole's diaries. Maybe the best way to sample them is actually to read them. Now here, this is not, I've called this not just Adrian Mole. Here is a book which is very definitely not about Adrian and his preoccupations. This is about Angela Carr and her attempts to abort a child. It says, Sue Townsend writes with compassion, unflinchingly about love and loss. She was certainly a woman of the world, and she did know what she was talking about. There we have it. So it's nice to mention something which she created, which was not Adrian. We'll be coming on to more of that later. Here's a different sort of book. Rebuilding Coventry. Having been to Coventry about six or 7 years ago, maybe it does need rebuilding. This is about Coventry. Dakin kills her neighbour with an action man. In a frantic bid to prevent him from strangling his wife, she goes on the run. Finding herself alone and friendless in London, she tries to lose herself in the city's maze of streets. It says, it's brilliant and laugh out loud satire. Well, there we are. Didn't expect that, did you? If you go into a bookshop, this will not be what they're trying to sell you, of course. But that could be all the more reason to try and buy it. So there it is. And now for something much more regal. This is her take on the royal family and what would happen to them if they lost all their money, I think. I'm saying I think because it's ages since I read this. England is an unhappy and fearful land. In desperate attempt to prevail over crime and social disorder, the Prime Minister has created exclusion zones. Sounds pretty reasonable. Prince Charles and his love of his life, Camilla, live in the Flowers exclusion zone with the rest of the royal family and their many dogs. He enjoys poultry keeping, tending his vegetable patch. The Queen announces her decision to abdicate. Charles refuses to follow his destiny unless his wife can be queen. While the undercover battle for the crown begins, the dogs, the Flowers exclusion zone, face a struggle of their own when Jack Barker announces his new one dog per household policy. You know, quite frankly, this is almost prophetic, isn't it? Written presumably about 15 years ago. I'll get it. 2006. So yes, it was 15 years ago. Sue wrote, there's a list here of about 8 plays, screenplays, the adaptations, of course, of Adrian Mole. So there we are. This is published by Michael Joseph. It's quite unusual to see it in hardback, but I made the effort to get it. There we are. Now we go on to the boy himself. The Secret Diary of Adrian Mole. It's worth pointing out that this book made Susan Lillian a millionairess. And why not? As Barry Norman was purported to have said. Tuesday, January the 1st, bank holiday. I will help the blind across the road. I will hang my trousers up. I will put the sleeves back on my records. I will not start smoking. he had this girlfriend, you see, Pandora. She grows up to be a Conservative MP and a little bit ahead of him intellectually. More than a little bit ahead of him intellectually, I think. And this is the secret diary. Some of the little accompanying illustrations are really rather good, actually. Of Adrian Mole, aged 13 3/4. Well, Adrian didn't stay aged 13 3/4 throughout. She brings him back to life again. In fact, in the last books, he has, I think he had a job in a bookshop, which he either lost or resigned from, not certain which, and he does have cancer. Pandora, that's the girlfriend, and the neighbor. Pandora's got a little fat horse called Blossom. She feeds it and makes it jump over barrels every morning before school. I know because I hid behind her father's Volvo and then followed her to the field next to the disused railway line. Now, you'll notice this is not laugh a minute. I hid behind a scrap car in the corner of the field and watched her. She looked a dead good in her riding stuff. Her chest was wobbling like mad. See the adolescent references. She will need to wear a bra soon. My heart was beating so loudly in my throat, they felt like a stereo loudspeaker. So I left before she heard me. People complained because the papers were late. He was a paper boy, obviously. I had a Guardian left over in my bag, so I took it home to read. It was full of spelling mistakes. It was disgusting when you think of how many people who could spell are out of work. Here's another one. He mentions Barry Kent, who is, I think, a local bully who goes on to become an estate agent. How appropriate. I gave Barry Kent his protection money today. I don't see how there can be a God. If there was, surely he wouldn't let people like Barry Kent walk about menacing intellectuals. Yes, he thinks himself rather like me, a sort of intellectual, and he writes poetry, which he sends to people. Anyway, we are bigger youths unpleasant to... Why are bigger youths unpleasant to smaller youths? Perhaps their brains are easily worn out. All the extra work you have to do to have bigger bones and stuff. Or it could be that big youths have got brain damage because of all the sport they play. Or perhaps big youths just like menacing and fighting. I think that, Adrian. When I go to university, I may study the problem. I will have my thesis published and will send a copy to Barry Kent. Perhaps by then he will have learnt to read. My mother has forgotten that today was Pancake Day. I reminded her at 11 p.m. I'm sure she burnt them deliberately. I will be 14 in 1 month's time. As you see, he dips into introspection, and then he attempts to understand, and I know the feeling, the world around him, without success, but lovably so. Got parcel from Auntie Susan. It was embroidered toothbrush holder. It was made by one of the prisoners. She is called Grace Poole. Auntie Susan said that I should write and thank her, ! It was bad enough that my father's sister works in Holloway prison, but now I'm expected to start writing to the prisoners. Grace Poole could be a murderess or anything. Still waiting for £11.80. It doesn't seem as if my mother is desperate to see me. Not sure what that's a reference to. It is done as a chronology, diary entries like that. This was all a long time ago. I think it's about 40 years ago. Let me get you a date for this. Probably more important than my wittering one. 1982. So yes, it was 40 years ago this year. He deals with bereavement as a child and the dawn of sexual awareness. My father said Scruton today and saw Scruton today. I think it might be a local neighbour or something. And told him that if he didn't allow me back to school, oh no, in whatever coloured socks I like, he would protest to his MP. Mr. Scruton asked my father who his MP was. My father didn't know. There we are. And here's a letter from... It's my sad duty to inform you that the son-daughter has been deliberately flaunted flaunted one of the rules of the school. I take an extremely serious view of this contravention. I am therefore suspending your son-daughter for a period of 1 week. Young people today often lack sufficient moral guidance in the home. Therefore, I feel it's my duty to take a firm stand in my school. If you wish to discuss the matter further with me, do not hesitate to ring my secretary for an appointment. Yours sincerely, R.G. Scruton, Headmaster. Well, Adrian didn't die, nor did he become precluded from his internal voices and worries. And here we have an omnibus for 175. I did well, didn't I? Another nudge to say to you, look in charity shops. Don't just pay the high prices. This is The Secret Diary of Adrian Mole, which I've just shown you. The Growing Pains of Adrian Mole, True Confessions of Adrian Mole, and Adrian Mole and the Small Amphibians. I'm not sure I know what that was. I don't think that was launched commercially. It may be that she put it out to tender in a way that, you know, she put out a little sample in papers and so forth. I don't think necessarily. As Adrian grew up, I know that his fame grew, but I'm not sure his popularity did. Here's an entry. Why, oh why, did I ask Pandora, the girlfriend, to show me her nipple? Everybody's nipple should have done. Nigel says that Sharon Box will show you everything for 50p and a pound of grapes. I have written Pandora a short note. And this is it. You ready for this? Are you sitting down? Adrian's note to Pandora Braithwaite. Pandora, darling, what can I say? I was crude and clumsy. I should have known you would run from me like a startled fawn. Please, at least grant me an audience and let me apologize in person. Yours with unvanquished love, Adrian. I'll just read you one more entry. There's a lovely one. I probably can't find it, but it says something like, what are your views on the Falklands War, with particular reference to Lord Carrington's resignation? And he sends that to his girlfriend. We break up tomorrow, so the school has gone a bit wild. The girls are doing no work at all. They just sit around the classrooms counting how many Christmas cards they've received from each other and writing out hundreds more. The elf postal service is being swamped. I don't send any cards at all. I'm still waiting to see if anybody sends me one. Tomorrow is the day of the school concert. It'll be the first year of nothing to do. My mother is glad because it means she won't have to go. Here's an entry for the, he talks about money. Drew £15 out of my building society today. I know it's a lot, but I've got an extra person to buy for, Rosie. That's his little sister. 9:30, forgot that Queenie isn't here anymore. That was Bert, his neighbour's girlfriend, I think, who died. I needn't have been so extravagant. My memory. Let's pass on. Here we are when Adrian was of age. The Cappuccino Years. This is an enormous tome, whichever way you look at it. I mean, look. Oh, here's the great lady herself in happier days. Let's see what it says. A Midlands person. It lists all the books she's written, which I'm not about. The Queen and I, Adrian Mole, The Wilderness Years. Her latest novel, Ghost Children, which I showed you earlier, I think, was published in 1998. There was a documentary, very interesting, about her. It may be possible still to get it, you know, on Google or whatever, and YouTube. I strongly recommend it. She is also well known as a playwright, it says. I'm just hesitating. Phoned the bank successfully. I got, and it says the amount, in a high interest account. I know it's correct because the robot called Jade told me. My mother's written a poem called A Weeping Womb. She's sending it to the Daily Express for a bloke called Harry Ayres. I told her, sorry, it isn't a bloke. Never mind. Bloke called Harry Ayres. I told her it stood no chance of being published. Harsh, I know, but I can't bear her disappointment. I will not read it to you. My womb, it is dying, ne'er fertile again, it concludes. She slipped this under my door last night. When I saw it at breakfast, I made no reference to it. What could I possibly say? Ivan is behind all this. I believe that everyone has a talent. It's just that society cannot encompass, etc., etc., etc. Blah, blah, blah. In other words, he's skipping over a lot of it, possibly because he's got a letter from Sharon Botts. The one would show you anything for 50p. This must come as a bit of a downer. I belong to the past, I know, but it won't for me send you this letter. This is my son, Glenn. He is a big lad of 12 now, and he wants to know who his father is. The thing is, Adi, I don't know. As you found out, I have relations with you and Barry Kent at the same time. I've written to Barry the same as you. Glenn says that you and Barry should do a DNA test to find out who the dad is. He's a good lad at home. Never no trouble. I don't know why the teachers are against him at school. I'm sorry to bother you with all this to do with Glenn. Can you give me a ring? I work shifts at Parker's Poultry, but I'm home at 10. Me and Glenn have seen you on cable. You were quite good. Did you see that Barry had won a prize for writing a book about a blind man? It's in the Mercury last night. Yours faithfully, Sharon L. Bott. Well, Sharon L. Bott. There you are. And you feature in this. Now here's a lesser work, which she brings in. It's actually Alan Bennett on the cover. Some continuity since I did in Postcards 19, a thing on Adrian, on Alan Bennett, the playwright. Oh, there we are. And who's that in the middle? I'll give you a clue. It's not someone that's going to trouble British politics anymore. This includes articles with little vignettes, which she put in various publications using Adrian's name. I've been charged with shoplifting. My life is ruined. I shall have a criminal record. Now I'll never get a job in the civil service. Lucky him. Pandora is standing by me. She's feeling dead guilty because she ran out of the shop. She forgot to pay £1 for the courgettes, a lettuce and a box of mustard and cress. Nothing has changed. It's still the rich that get the gravy and the poor that get the blame. Well, on that melancholic note, I leave you. Do look at the links I provided down below. And if you see an Adrian Mould book, even if you read it as a child, or even if you haven't read it for years, or even considered it, go back and have a look. I've been James Pratt, and this has been Postcards 20. Thank you for your time.